bids on it, in that alley. You
Oh,
can
yeah,
actually
yeah,
really
yeah.
get it tucked in. There you go, 2 bids on it.
Thank you, Denny. Yeah. It must have, apparently that tanked or something, huh?
Page letter on what
I'm kind of glad because I was wondering what that was going to do with Toby's out there.
Where were they out of?
Lincoln, La Vista, India.
Wow.
Williams right after I talked to you, I called him, we signed a deal, we just filed.
Well, it is 5:30, August 3rd, 2020, and it is time to call this committee meeting of the whole to order. We are in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, Nebraska Revised Statute 84-1407. Current copy of the act is available at this meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Augustine Schulte. Here. Barr.
Here.
Emer.
Here.
Jablonski.
Here.
Kreshaw.
Here.
Lohr.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Schilling.
Here.
Council President Barr, the roll has been called.
Very good. There are 6 items on our meeting for this evening. Starts with fiscal year 2020-2021. Mrs. Vasacek, you want to run us through this?
Yes, good evening. Item 2A is the capital improvement plan. And the Planning Commission did see this capital improvement plan at their last regular meeting and they recommend approval. There's no motion needed tonight from you, but we wanted to go over it with you. The first item, the first attachment in your agenda item is a memo from the finance director. Similar to previous years, it just has the big facts about the budget. Those include that our budget is just under $100 million for this next fiscal year as proposed. Last year it was $1.5 million. Included in that $99 million budget is $29 million worth of capital improvement projects. It also...
Janelle, are you going to put it up on the screen, the attachment?
Oh, I can.
Well, I would think that would be...
If you want me to do the screen stuff, you can change it to this. I'm attached.
Do that if you want to.
Might be easier for you.
Know when to turn it.
Mhm.
Oops, there we go.
Okay. Why is it not loading? White pages. Oh, there we go. Okay. So that's the budget overview. Then it talks a little bit about capital. Just simply states that we've provided in the other attachments what we plan to do for this next fiscal year and what we have pushed out to the next 4 fiscal years. Property tax. We are, as we discussed previously, not recommending an increase to the property tax levy. So currently, for every $100,000 of valuation on a property, it's $315.19 that comes to the city of Columbus. And again, that's for general fund purposes, police, fire, parks, library, general administration, all those things. It does not go into any enterprise funds. Same for next fiscal year. We will not get those final numbers from the county until August 20th. So once we get those final figures, we will make final adjustments to the budget. Sales tax, that first paragraph under the sales tax section is just a brief history, which you all are very well versed in. You've been here for a while. The 1% is for capital improvement. A portion of that 1% in 2018 was approved to go towards economic development, a cap per year of $425,000 for economic development. And then we have the 0.5%, and that is going to pay off the fire and police station bonds. And then hopefully in November, we'll be able to move forward with a library, children's museum, community room, arts project. Sorry, I keep getting these notifications. So it just briefly talks about the fact that we've got our sales tax receipts. What they were in 2018, 2019 was just over $8 million. We're being conservative again in this next budget as we were in our current budget. We're budgeting for $7.1 million in sales tax revenues. That has served us very well this year, given our current economic situation that we're experiencing. So we're not recommending any change to sales tax revenues, budgeted revenues. Last section is property taxes, receipts other than property taxes. So Heather makes a note here that the motor vehicle is a place where we do expect to have some pretty significant, if there's any area of the motor vehicle, and then our highway allocation is going to see a decrease. DOT has already told us to expect about $264,000 less in our in our DOT assistance. So that's unfortunate, especially given all of the infrastructure projects, street infrastructure projects that we have on the horizon. Hopefully it will turn around. The last section is just that we do not do across the board percentage increases in our budget. We really actually plan and look at everything that's coming up. We don't do just a solid 2 or 3% across the board for operating. So that's what that statement says. And then just thank you for all your time and reviewing and questions and all that. Do you guys have any questions about this opening memo? Yes, John.
Do you differentiate between the sales tax we get in the normal manner and that is rebated by the state for the internet sales tax that's collected?
No, and we don't have a way to do that.
Well, you got a number, don't you?
No, we get one lump sum of sales tax.
I see. They come as one lump sum, and they don't tell you how much is it.
No.
Gee,
No.
if you asked, would they tell you?
We can have one individual go to look at what receipts are and where they come from, but we cannot make that information public. We can't report anything like that. It's, unfortunate, but.
Why are they being so secretive?
Well, they always have when it comes to sales tax.
I mean, it's right.
It is, and that's unfortunate because a lot of communities don't make a lot of effort to go and look unless there's something really glaring that they're suspecting somebody major that's not paying or anything. But again, even if we saw something like that, the only thing we can do is report it to the Department of Revenue. I couldn't come back here and tell you all, even though I'm the city administrator and it's our revenues. That's state law.
I just find that strange.
Why?
Interesting.
Yes.
It's our money.
So nobody can go in there and slap fingers in, huh? If
No.
they wanted to.
Nope.
Very interesting.
Yes. Any other questions about this opening? Okay, let's move on then to the next attachment. As I jump around here, the 5-year plan. I'll go through our capital in this 5-year plan attachment rather than the capital improvement plan worksheets, but the third attachment and the fourth attachment there just give you more information about all these capital projects that are included in this fiscal year's budget. So we've got, still thinking here. Okay. So this fiscal year, so the 2021 column, we included $200,000 for the FEMA hazard mitigation, $40,000 for the groundwater recharge project for the lower loop, FEMA buyout program, that's on several of those properties down on Highway 30 that were impacted by the 2019 flood, to get them moved out for $163,000. City Hall, should that ballot issue pass in November, a portion of that construction. Then we have $70,000 for miscellaneous IT upgrades and $19,500 for the pictometry was moved to this fiscal year. That's a 3-year issue, so we actually do have to do that this year, and then 15,000 for an engineering plotter scanner. The next, my screen isn't letting me. Okay. Next, we're gonna jump all the way down to PD. There is the $107,000 for outfitting the new impound facility should the sale of the old impound facility go through with Jackson Services. They're like almost every business, they're dealing with current economic situation, so I have not heard much from Jackson's, but everything's there and waiting, and they do have a draft purchase agreement in their possession, so I'm sure we'll hear from them at some point, but I'm not sure when. The e-citations is the finishing up of that program, which is a federally mandated requirement. Radio improvements for $250,000. And then the police fleet vehicles, there's 4. 63 at $65,300, and then 1 admin vehicle at $15,000. The fire department, we have $675,000, and that's for the addition and repair at Charlie Lewis Station. And then the SCBA equipment for $900,000. Rescue, there is no capital items in the rescue department. If you remember correctly, there were some smaller items that last year would have been capital, but this year with the change in our capitalization policy are part of the operating budget. So items less than $5,000. The next is library, and the only capital improvement item for the library again is if that November referendum is successful. So that would be the first fiscal year's expense related to the Library Children's Museum project.
So your second year, you're gonna have 13 million?
Yes, that's what we talked to the Boyd Jones and asked them if we meet our schedule, if it passes and we meet our build out schedule, when would we expect expenses? And they gave us this timeline, both with this portion and City Hall's portion. So we broke it out by that in the fiscal years.
So we went from a $16 million library to a $22 million library?
Actually, it's a $30 million project.
Overall project.
But
So why is it all in the library?
this is the library and children's museum portion of it. And yes, it is more square footage and 3 years later. And it has bigger community room too. The all the breakdown of, and that is total cost. The $16 million in 2017 was construction only. It didn't have any FF&E, any furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It didn't have any design, which is, 8%. It didn't have any construction oversight. That was strictly the construction, the infrastructure construction. So it's not comparing apples to apples to talk about the $16 million in 2017 to the $30 million today. Does that make sense? We're trying to be all-inclusive in our project so that we are very transparent about what's going on with the project and what the whole picture is rather than just the construction costs.
And that does include the city hall along with that
Yeah.
30,000, right?
Yes,
That's,
yes,
Just so I understand,
yes.
if the library vote fails, the city hall fails.
It does.
So you go back to Plan B. Do we have a Plan B for the city hall?
Renovation or relocation.
Renovation or relocation, okay.
Cemetery is our next department. So we have nothing this next fiscal year included. Community development. There is the online permitting program. If you remember last time we spoke, we have $30,000 in this fiscal year's budget that was allocated to the LDO update, but we're doing that in-house, so we haven't spent that. So we are proposing to use that money to start the online permitting process, and then the carryover, the total cost of the online permitting is $66,000. So we can do 30 this fiscal year and 36 next fiscal year to finish it out. And this vehicle and community development is not supposed to be there. We'll make that change. The, what's that?
Dan's
Dan.
walking now.
We just got one you just got one last year too. The next is the park department, the Powerhouse Trail Phase 1. That's, we got grant money from that, and it has been delayed because of flooding and core review and all those things. So hopefully next year that will get finished. And then a 4x4 crew cab pickup with the toolbox for the parks department. The only Pawnee Park Water Park, there's nothing included for this next fiscal year. The aquatic center, the item that is included is the men's locker room ceiling repair for $30,000. The Quail Run Golf Course flood damage repair, $1.7 million. We've completed the debris removal, we've completed the shelters, we've started irrigation. So the last piece of the Quail Run rebuild is the Category G rebuild through FEMA, and we have been working with them. I CC'd you all on an email, the latest email today, so if you have any questions about that, you can let me know, but it's about to be an open letter to FEMA about how frustrated we are with the process, because we're 17 months post-flood, post-disaster, and we don't have really any guidance on the most substantial portion of our project. And people are frustrated, I'm frustrated, and I don't know what else to do except rattle some cages a little harder than we have been. So any comments on today's emails or questions if you've had a chance to read it? Okay.
Can Fortenberry do you any good?
Still working on it. Kim Kwapnowski is his local staff, and she's, engaged FEMA and talked to them, but she's getting the runaround just like we are. So I don't know. Hopefully my email today will at least get us a meeting with some higher ups so we can, talk some more. Which I'm very, let's just do it. How about we just get it done? But that hasn't happened yet. The irrigation line to the south for hole 5 is $10,000. That's included. Those are the only 2 items for Quail. The Platte County Library Services, there is nothing included. That $300,000 is pushed out. We'll see what that ballot issue in November does out in Platte County, if they want to continue to provide services to their constituents, I should say. The street department, the 33rd Avenue lighting at $35,000, school pedestrian crossing upgrades for $150,000, the 15th Street reconstruction carryover of $200,000, South Thoroughfare study, that is more implementation than the study. The study will be complete this fiscal year. So that's for some preliminary work to move forward with whatever design comes out of the study. 12th Avenue Viaduct, finishing that up, $1 million. Miscellaneous for $250,000 to cover city costs, share portions of projects, private projects. The citywide paving, we included the $550,000 that will cover the 15th Street project, as we discussed previously. 48th Avenue from 38th Street to Lost Creek Parkway at 1.5, that's a carryover. East 14th Avenue from the highway north to 1/8 mile south of the canal for $3.6 million. ADA improvements, $50,000. 23rd Street and 48th Avenue, SID. Again, similar to the South Thoroughfare, this is $10,000 in the budget to do some initial work to move forward with designing of that, in hopes that we can include it in the following fiscal year's budget. US Highway 30 reconstruction, 1.825, and you'll see that that project total out of pocket for the city is around $7 million. And we were able to get DOT to agree to take 3 payments over 3 of our fiscal years to construction season. So that helped our budget immensely. SID 186 was a petition for an alley between 14th and 15th Street and 28th and 29th Avenues. SID 187, 25th Street and 33rd Avenue. Those are smaller projects. Any questions in the street department?
Tara, on the citywide
Yes.
pavement rehabilitation at $550,000, that is 15th Street from 23rd to 12th?
Oh, yes, right? From 12th Avenue to, yeah,
Okay,
that's
very good.
correct.
Thank you.
Tara, I thought the alley at 14th and 15th Street was on the owner? Do that?
It's assessments, yes.
Okay.
Yes, except if it goes out into the connections to the road and stuff like that there'll be a small portion that are our responsibility. Any other questions on street before we move on to airport? We've got the removal of the snow, or of the A-frame, excuse me, and then the finishing up of the SRE building out at the airport. It's coming right along. The communications department has computer-aided dispatch that's finishing up. They're implementing that system. It's supposed to go live here in September, but we have a little bit left in the contract that we'll have to pay next fiscal year. The tower and radio equipment contingency for $75,000. And then the moving of the fire department repeater and the moving of high band 3 have been completed, and they were completed for substantially less than we had budgeted. So
That was nice.
kudos to Rachel Pensick on all the homework that she did on that, but that work is done. The next, wastewater collection. So we're into enterprise funds. We're out of the tax supported funds. We've got the sanitary extension district for Deer Run Estates, 150,000. Lift stations, 600,000 and 350,000. That would be for the one by Vieira and then the one by the airport park, the reconstruction of those. The system CIP lining for 150,000, 23rd Street sanitary sewer main reconstruction for 189,000. The lift station web-based control alarm system, 75,000, vapor route upgrade unit for 35,000, and a portion of a copier. Water there is nothing included for the wastewater for this next fiscal year. Water, we've got the 15th Street water main upgrades. That's a carryover from this year, 396,000. The water extension district for Deer Run, 23rd Street water main reconstruction for the highway project. Remove and replace fire hydrants for 30,000. Fixed space AMR automatic readers for our meters, and then the $100,000 for tank rehab, and another 5,000 for the other portion of the copier. Stormwater, $50,000 for flood evaluation. The regional stormwater improvements for 120,000, and then trunk line storm sewer cleaning for $50,000. The transfer station, there is a expansion of the pad for the grass dump area. The demo we moved out to the next fiscal year, and then a backup push packer rebuild for 6, runner guides for 7. Floor guide rubs for 7, and the platform man lift for 8,500.
Is JEO still in that drainage program?
Yes, the flood evaluation, yep, and we've had a couple meetings with them in the last few months, and it's quite the complex, process, and they've had communications with the Corps and what the process is for us to be able to, and I assume that's what you're referring to, the getting the
Yeah,
land out of the flood way up north.
Yeah, yeah.
Or floodplain, yes. That's still in the works, but it just based on our meetings with them, it's gonna take a little longer than they first anticipated because, I don't know, Rick, it's considered a levee.
Considered a levee.
The drainage ditch is considered a levee by the Corps, so you have to go through lots of extra hoops
So
in
other
order
words,
for
what they're saying is
FEMA.
that we gotta understand and know what's coming.
We gotta do a study
From way
of the
around us.
whole area before we can say that this is really out of the floodplain.
That includes tying in the Loop River levee with the Lost Creek ditch.
It's just a major, thing, which we'll continue to work on it, and JEO has continued to work on it. They understand it's important, and the longer it takes, Columbus is growing that way. So
Yeah, I know.
we do need to get it done, and we've made that very clear that we need to get it done. So that is our capital improvement plan for the next fiscal year.
Tara, you look at the stormwater, the transfer station, wastewater collection and treatment. Those are enterprise funds.
They are,
So they
have
fund
no-
themselves.
right, they have no property tax.
When do we look at those and evaluate? I know we do studies on those funds and how are we current with that? Where are we with
Sure.
those studies? What's
There
going on
was
with
a water and wastewater cost of service and rate study completed 2.5 years ago, and you all adopted a 5-year rate schedule. So we're implementing that 5-year rate schedule. There's no water increase this year. We had a sewer increase previously. So we're all good. Last year we looked at the transfer station rates, and we did make an adjustment last year at the transfer station rates, if you recall. This year we're not recommending a rate change at the transfer station. And stormwater utility is our newest enterprise fund, so we set those rates within the last 18 months.
And if I'm not mistaken, stormwater, sewer, and unfunded mandate.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's come down to us to do,
Yes.
and now
We
have to
have-
incorporate that into our structure and our
Yes.
system.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, it costs us money to do what the federal government is requiring us to do related to stormwater, and we have to pay for it somehow.
I missed my opportunity on this, I apologize, but on the Charlie Lewis fire station,
Yes.
you weren't here, but the original rationale for building that fire station was that there was no fire station on that side of the tracks, so to speak, and there were no viaducts. There was only one, and it was a 2-lane viaduct, and that doesn't give a very good possibility of response. I wish the chief were here, because he could probably respond just as well, if not better than you can, but how often and how much is that used? Because we're pouring a whole lot more money in there, and now we have 3 viaducts, and it would seem as though the original rationale to build it in the first place is no longer there.
Well, I think at that time that was accurate, but now we've even moved the base station or the main station further west than it was at that time.
Agreed.
And that station, the Charlie Lewis station, is very close to our industrial base. So it's going to help that base if we have a more fully manned station down there with respect to insurance rates and all those things. And there is a fair amount of calls down there. Now the issue, and the mayor and I have talked about it many times, is that we have many industrial tracks, 14, I believe, around Columbus, and only one of them one of the areas pays a fire and rescue fee for the city to provide fire and rescue services in there to them. But we still provide the service to everybody. So we're working on that. We've been working on that. Linda Nickerson's been putting a lot of time in trying to work with the county to understand, because that fee is based on both real and personal property. And the records for these industrial tracts is archaic, to say the least. So we've been trying to track it down to get that fee structure more equitable, and that will result in an increase in revenue to the fire and rescue budgets, which I intend to use to pay for staff at this Charlie Lewis station. Because I totally agree with you, John, that it's just we're going to add living quarters, and then you add staff, and that's just a perpetual cost. You never cut those costs. But Columbus is growing. You know, we're an industrial based community. A lot of it is out that way. They do get called out there a lot. So I think it's something that we do need to do. And furthermore, we did tell the public in 2018 ahead of our bond issue that was part of the plan, which is why we're doing it. And when we did that study, we looked heavily at that and the response and all of those things. So I think you're right, Dan's not here, and he can probably give you more accurate numbers, and I probably have a report saved on my computer that I can send you to about where the calls are.
Thank you.
And that sort of thing.
I think more than, a big part was the discussions being held during the election back in 2016 and the bond question with the new station's location moving east, the concern of going further from the center of town for response time.
Yeah.
Obviously, even with viaducts and the parkway, response time will increase some when you're on the west side of town.
Mm-hmm.
So that discussion became pretty clear that we would address the needs at Charlie Lewis when, we didn't put a time frame on it, but when as we move forward. So I think that, and then add to this the continued growth of our industrial tracts in our industrial area, and the need to, and residential. And residential is growing to that area also. So, and then to address Tara's comments on the industrial tracts and the payments, it was an administrative oversight for many, many years, something that just never got addressed. And I'm saying many, many years, 40, 50 years. So it's not that somebody did anything wrong. I mean, it was just an oversight that was caught, and it's being looked at and trying to determine how can we best bring this together, explain it to everybody, and what will that result in increased revenues to the city. And as Tara said, those revenues would be identified specifically toward the fire department.
Right, to provide those services that we're providing to those
I just didn't
industrial
want,
tracts.
I didn't want anybody to leave here and say, how did we not charge for those? It's
Yes,
just it was just a complete oversight for many, many years.
Decades.
And as she said, looking into the files to try to correct it has been a nightmare.
Yes.
One of the things also is that, the other communities in our array have many more fired and EMT people working for them. Yeah.
I
Not
disagree.
necessarily.
I don't.
It's pretty close to where
Yeah,
we're at.
we're actually comparable
Yeah.
with full-time staff. We are compared to our,
For population.
It's
Yep.
just
Per capita.
happened then in the last couple of years.
per capita, we are comparable with our other communities in our array. We are pay, staff, benefits,
Okay.
all those
Then
things.
Then it's just been
Yep.
brought up since the time I've been involved with the fire department.
And to help John, answer John's question to utilization, that station does get used a lot. A lot of it's by volunteers, where they'll pick up equipment and take it to the scene or whatnot.
And I
I
know they
admit
put
that
newer equipment
I don't have a
down
handle
there
on that at
since-
all.
Say they flipped equipment with the new station too, to put some more
So
down there.
there's a lot of individuals that live on that side of town that utilize that station instead of driving all the way across town. Now, as far as staff personnel down the road, that's another story. And I would think that we could get by with 1 to 2 people staffed there.
That's not what they say.
Well, it does, definitely in my eyes, doesn't need to be staffed like the other one. I mean, we have volunteer base, and we need to continue to keep our volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
I do
Dennis?
know that the fire department gets called to Columbus Place Apartments a lot,
Yep.
because they go right by my house. but what's the response time from the new fire station to Columbus Place Apartments?
I'm sure
Is
it's
that
higher.
within, time limits for,
What the
emergency?
limit is, I don't know what that parameter is.
I'm sure there is one,
I'm sure they have it set, and I'm sure it's
Yeah.
higher than what it used to be.
yeah. I just wanted to throw that out there,
Sure.
yeah.
Any other comments on this? Otherwise, that's all I have to say about the capital improvement plan. If there's no other questions, we can move on to 2B, the budget. I am not going to go through the full budget report unless you all want to. It really just reflects minor changes to operating budget and then the changes in capital spending from this fiscal year to next fiscal year. Did anything pop out at you guys that you, and then obviously personnel changes, which again, we've talked about all those, and I will open this fourth attachment about the personnel changes. And again, these are what we had talked about at our last meeting. And all the way on the right is the proposed changes that are included in the budget. Oh, my touch screen is not working. Okay, so all the way on the right side of your attachment is it says administrator proposed on the top. So we had talked about adding a park and rec director, and the total cost, wages, taxes, retirement, insurance is $89,000. And then we had talked about the senior office associate too. Total cost is $91,000. And again, that total wages, if you look at the total wages column and then the administrator proposed, you'll see that we're going to be less than we were. So I think we're continuing to meet the goal of being more efficient with our resources, and getting with the times a little bit better on some of our operations. So we've talked about that. The senior office associate has been on the agenda, and we've talked about it several times. Do you all have any questions? If we're good with this, we will start the internal process of these hires, so that by the time the next fiscal year is in place, we can be off and moving forward with hopefully these people soon in their place. Okay. The last attachment here, or the other attachments here, I should say, are just the historical receipts for the sales tax, the 1%, the 0.5%, and then 21 sales tax receipts by type report for your information. A lot more than I think we need to go through. Unless you all have questions about one of them, we can dive into one of them. Okay, 2C is the 1% restricted funds authority increase. This is something that the City of Columbus, the council, has authorized for many years.
You want it displayed? I turned it back to this.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
open it up.
Tara?
Yeah.
Back to the personnel.
Sure.
I thought all we had was the community development director for the proposed.
The community development director. You mean
Well-
the office associate, senior office associate?
Sorry,
Too?
yeah.
We had also talked about the park and rec director, including
I
that.
thought you had excluded that last time. Maybe I misunderstood.
I had included it last time.
Okay.
I do think it's necessary, and then last time we had talked about how presently and for the last few years, City of Columbus has been part of the Doug Cluse position. The chamber and CVB and the city, we had gone in on Doug Cluse part-time
Understood. Yeah, I
positions.
remember.
So we got rid of that and are proposing to have a full-time city staff as a park and rec coordinator. It's not a director position, it's not a department head position, but it would be under Doug Moore, And I think we can do a lot of good things with that. We're definitely at the level where we can support something like that. The 1% restricted funds authority. So the 1% is to, like the letter says, serve as a hedge against any emergency that might come up if we have to use more than that 2.5%. The city council has authorized the increased 1% for many years, all of the last few years that I've been here. And the total for this next fiscal year will be $111,952.
If I recall, if we don't do it now, we can't do it, right?
You have to do it now.
Yeah, and we can't increase it down the line.
That is accurate.
Okay. But you don't have to use it, and it goes,
No.
it goes back, or
Yeah.
it just goes nowhere.
Yeah, it just sits there.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
This one does need a motion.
I need a motion and a second.
I move that to recommend to the mayor and the city council that the restricted funds authority be increased by an additional 1% for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend to the mayor and city council that the restricted funds authority be increased by an additional 1% for fiscal year 2021. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Okay, item 2D is the fee schedule. There are just a few minor adjustments to the fee schedule for this year. We had made quite a few updates last year, if you recall. So the first is in the airport section of the fee schedule, and the proposal is just to eliminate the office space rental because we no longer have office space at the airport because we moved the Joint Communications Center out there. So there's really no reason to have an office space per square foot lease, and even if someday something comes up, we can always do something by agreement. Just like with many other things we do, we can always have city council approve an agreement if there's something else that comes up. The next, I'm not loving this new Spark, how they're doing this. The next is the aquatics. The aquatic center. So there's a recommended change for the concessionaire and vending daily fee to $16. It was previously $11.50. The Pawnee Plunge Water Park. The recommended changes here are for the Tuesday and Thursday 2 for night from $7 for 2 to $8 for 2. And Wednesday's family and friends rate from $15 to $16. The final adjustment to the fee schedule is in the fire and rescue section. Oh, you have it up on the screen. So the reports increase is it's a substantial increase, and I asked Dan about it prior to the meeting, and he says it's strictly the reflection of the cost is strictly because those requests for those reports is labor intensive. He says it takes 30 to 45 minutes of staff time to produce those and get them to the inquiring party. And the ambulance apparatus standby rates are new as well, and those, in addition to the report fees, said he did a comparability study with the people in our array, and that these are comparable to those communities as well. These would be rates that are billed by the city, not by our EMS provider. Fire rates are something we still do in-house. They're easy to collect and easy to bill.
So these ambulance fire apparatus standby fees we have not done in the past?
Correct.
Interesting.
They're new.
That was always done by Midwest.
Yeah.
For the fires, or for the ambulance side anyway.
Right. So if the opportunity exists in the future for the city to provide those services, now we have a rate in place to do that. And that is,
Was there much of a use of that in the past? I mean, so there could be some revenues generated by that?
yes.
Oh, interesting. Good.
Those were the changes recommended to the fee schedule.
Did I miss it, or is the fireworks stand fees in here? Dennis had a question about that. Maybe we can see if this
They are in
is justified.
Where are they, what page are they on? Do you have
the fire department.
Are they? So what's your question?
What are the fireworks stand fees?
Firework
Yeah, they're in the
applications.
fire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They're in the
they
fire
are.
department? Okay. Hopefully not.
Document's just taking
Page 21.
forever.
Oh, okay.
So what's your, that's it? Are they in here? Or do you have a request or inquiry?
As much as possible.
Is that it? No. John, do you have something, or
No?
are you just looking?
I'm just looking.
Okay.
Well, are there other questions for the fee schedule? Okay, we need a motion and a second.
I'd move that that we recommend to the mayor and city council to adopt the fee schedule as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend to the mayor and city council that the fee schedule for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 be approved as presented. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
All right, so item 2E is the pay plans, the final item. The pay plan adjustment is reflected as we discussed in our last meeting, and that's a 3% cost of living adjustment. So we adjusted these hourly rates accordingly. Mr. Roth did catch that in the opening paragraphs here, it needs to say hourly rate rather than monthly salary. So we will change that prior to bringing this ordinance back to City Council for approval. Other than that, this is an accurate pay scale that reflects their 3% adjustment. Any questions? All right, well, this was,
We need a motion and a second.
I recommend to the mayor and city council that the pay plan for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 be approved as presented.
Okay.
With the corrections noted by Tara.
We have a motion and a second to recommend to the mayor and city council that the pay plan for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 be approved as presented. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Move, do we need a motion to adjourn?
nope,
Oh, we're done.
Just done.
you guys are very efficient.